Lasst uns mit einem Gebet anfangen.
Dear Heavenly Father,
Unser himmlischer Vater,
Lord, I'm grateful that we can gather here this morning,
Herr, ich bin dankbar, dass wir hier sein können diesen Morgen,
that we have the privilege of understanding these sublime truths,
dass wir auch dieses Privileg haben, diese Wahrheiten zu verstehen
and that you're constantly willing to unveil these things more and more to us.
und dass du konstant willig bist, diese Dinge uns mehr und mehr zu öffnen.
And Lord, I pray as we bring the pieces of this puzzle together,
Und ich möchte bitten, dass wenn wir diese Stücke des Puzzles zusammenbringen,
that it would work true repentance in our hearts,
dass es wahre Buße in unserem Herzen hervorruft,
that we would loathe our sin,
dass wir unsere Sünde verabscheuen
and that we would say, get thee hence, like this menstruous cloth.
und dass wir sagen würden, sozusagen, geh hinter uns.
And I want to just pray that you would impress these things upon our hearts this morning.
Ich möchte bitten, dass du diese Dinge in unser Herz beeindruckst.
And we ask this in the name of Jesus.
Und wir bitten diesen Jesu Namen.
Amen.
Amen.
If you don't understand something that I'm saying, I know when I'm praying, but don't be scared to ask me. Okay, so the notes are in the live stream.
Also die Notizen sind im Livestream.
Okay, so this morning there's some revision here,
Also heute Morgen haben wir eine Wiederholung hier,
but there's also some new points, and I want to bring some things together.
aber es gibt auch ein paar neue Punkte und ich möchte das zusammenbringen.
And it helps us to see also some things in relation to this, these two mountains that we've been looking at.
Und das hilft uns auch ein paar Dinge zu sehen in Bezug auf diese zwei Berge, was wir uns angeschaut haben.
But ultimately I'm laying this out because I want to go back to Judges 19.
Und ich lege jetzt das aus, denn ich möchte zurück zu Richter 19 gehen.
And this, what we go through this morning, is a parallel to it.
Und also das, durch was wir heute Morgen gehen, das ist eine Parallele dazu.
Okay, so anyway, let's begin. Go to Exodus chapter 12,
Wir fangen an, wir gehen zu 2. Mose 12,
verse 1.
in Vers 1.
It says, And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months, it shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbour next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls, every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish. A male of the first year, ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the gate, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. So, we have an illustration here, right, of these days leading down to the Passover, right?
Also hier haben wir eine Darstellung von diesen Tagen, die dann bis zum Passa führen.
Okay, so they were to select a lamb without blemish
Sie sollten ein Lamm ohne Makel auswählen,
on the 10th day of the first month,
am 10. Tag des ersten Monats.
and they were to keep it up until the 14th day of the first month, where they would slay it in the evening.
Sie sollten das dann eben aufbewahren bis zum 14. Tag des Monats, wo sie es dann am Abend schlagen werden.
So 5 days, right?
Also 5 Tage.
10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, right?
Also der 10., 11., 12., 13. und der 14.
Right?
Richtig.
Okay, and it's interesting that this lamb was to be without blemish, right?
Und es ist interessant, dass eben dieses Lamm, es sollte ohne Makel sein.
Okay, so we'll come back to that in a moment. Just go to verse 7.
Kommen dann nochmal, wir gehen jetzt zu Vers 7.
It says, And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts and on the upper doorpost of the houses, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs shall they eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. And thus shall ye eat it with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. So, how was the lamb to be prepared?
Wie sollte das Lamm zubereitet werden?
By fire, right?
Durch Feuer.
Okay. And it says in verse 12,
Das sagt in Vers 12.
For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt will I execute judgment. I am the Lord. And who is that that's going to execute judgment?
Und wer ist das, der das Strafgericht ausführt?
The destroying angel, right?
Also dieser zerstörerische Engel.
Okay, so let's just do that, right? So you have this 10th day, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, right? And then they were to roast with fire, right? And it was to be without blemish, right? And because the destroying angel was going to come on this evening, on this night, right? At midnight. Right?
Also hier haben wir diese Tage und hier sollte das Lamm ausgewählt werden ohne Makel. Es sollte es gebraten werden mit Feuer und hier würde dann der zerstörerische Engel kommen, also mit diesem Abend oder in dieser Nacht dann.
Right? Okay. I don't know if I've got enough room, but let me just draw a line here in the middle. Maybe just got enough room here to do that. So I need to illustrate this. So this line, I'll just illustrate the time of trouble.
Also ich stelle jetzt die Zeit der Kriegszeit dar,
And without the time of peace. And so just
ohne der Zeit des Friedens.
okay. So let's just say this is the Sunday law crisis, right?
Also das ist jetzt die Sonntagsgesetzkrise.
Here's the final review, right? This would be seventh plague, midnight, right? Okay. So, so what I want to do is I want to take this illustration and I want to lay it on this line here, right?
Also ich möchte jetzt diese Darstellung nehmen, sie auf diese Linie setzen.
Now, just go to the book of Job, chapter 1,
Wir gehen zum Buch
in the Bible.
Hiob 1.
And verse 1.
Hiob 1 und Vers 1.
It says, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and escheweth evil. So, what is Job like?
Also wie ist Hiob?
He's without blemish, right?
Ist untadelig.
And if you go also to Daniel chapter 1,
Wenn wir auch zu Daniel 1 gehen,
and verse 1.
in Vers 1.
And just a question before we read this. Job chapter 1 and verse 1, it's marking the beginning of the Sunday law, right?
Hiob 1, Vers 1 markiert ja den Anfang des Sonntagsgesetzes.
Okay, and it's here in Daniel 1 and verse 1.
Wir lesen jetzt auch Daniel 1, Vers 1.
It's also the Sunday law, right?
Das ist auch das
We spent much
Sonntagsgesetz.
time going through this, right? So it says, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. So this is like Sesti is coming up and surrounding Jerusalem, right?
Also das ist Cestius, der was eben also Jerusalem umzingelt.
And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God, and he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spake to Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favoured, and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge, and etc., etc. Right? So, how was Daniel and his colleagues when they were taken into captivity?
So wie waren Daniel und seine Freunde, als sie gefangen genommen wurden?
They're without blemish, right?
Ohne Makel.
And this is the beginning of the 70 years, right?
Das ist der Anfang der 70 Jahre,
Which is the 1260.
was
Right?
ja die 1260 ist.
So here we'll just mark that here. Here we've got 70, which is 1260, right?
Also hier haben wir diese 70, was die 1260 ist.
So we've got two witnesses with Job and Daniel's friends that they are without blemish, right?
Also wir haben zwei Zeugen, also Hiob und Daniel und seine Freunde, dass sie ohne Makel waren.
And what I want to mark here is these 5 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, and in fact, let's do it that way. Let's mark it by the. This is the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and what I want to do is put the 14th out of this mark here. Right?
Also ich möchte diese Tage eben so markieren, hier der 10., 11., 12., 13. und der 14. wäre dann hier.
Right? Because, and who is Job and Daniel? Who do they represent?
Und wen stellen ja Hiob und Daniel dar?
In the Sunday law crisis, who do they
In der
represent?
Sonntagsgesetzkrise.
Yeah, they represent those that have already had the first birth, right?
Sie stellen diejenigen dar, die was bereits die Neugeburt hatten.
Can't be without blemish, right, if they've not had the first birth.
Sie können ja nicht ohne Makel sein, wenn sie nicht bereits die erste Geburt hatten.
Right, so this would be the people at the end of the time of peace, right, entered into covenant with the Lord, and they've now come to this time of trouble, and because of the sins of their brethren, they're taken into captivity, right?
Sorry, can you?
Prior to the Sunday law is a time of peace, right?
Also vor diesem Sonntagsgesetz ist ja diese Zeit des Friedens.
People at the end of the time of trouble, they enter into covenant with the Lord.
Und am Ende dieser Zeit der Trübsal, da gehen sie in einen Bund mit Gott ein.
Right? Remember, we read Deuteronomy 48. What are you to keep in that time?
Und wir haben ja 5. Mose 4-8 gelesen, was sollst du da behalten in dieser Zeit?
Sorry, dear? In the time of peace, after you've entered into covenant with the Lord, what are you to keep?
Also in der Zeit des Friedens, nachdem du in den Bund mit Gott gegangen bist, was musst du da behalten?
Yes, well, you to keep your garment spotless, but according to Deuteronomy 48, you're to keep God's commandments, right? This is the covenant.
Also gemäß 5. Mose 4-8 musst du eben Gottes Gebote halten, das ist dieser Bund.
And we went through this the other day, showing that what will happen to God's people when they go into the land.
Wir haben ja gesehen vor ein paar Tagen, was passiert, wenn Gottes Volk eben in das Land eingeht.
They forget God, right, and then they go back into captivity again, right?
Und sie vergessen Gott und gehen sozusagen dann zurück in die Gefangenschaft.
But did Daniel or Job forget God?
Aber haben Daniel und Hiob Gott vergessen?
No, they kept the covenant, right? It's because of the sins of their brethren, right, that they go back into captivity.
Nein, sie haben den Bund gehalten. Es ist nur wegen diesen Sünden ihrer Brüder, dass sie eben zurück in die Gefangenschaft gehen.
Okay, so they represent a people that are taken into captivity to be a light in that time period, right?
Also sie stellen Menschen dar, die was zurück in die Gefangenschaft kommen, um eben ein Licht zu sein.
Okay, so we've got this here from here, right? And what I want us to see is that this period here is the 14th. It's the Passover, right?
Was ich eben zeigen möchte, ist, dass diese Zeit hier sozusagen dieser 14. Tag ist, also das Passa.
Okay, and we'll look at this. Now go to Genesis 19.
Wir gehen jetzt zu 1. Mose 19.
It says, there came 2 angels to Sodom when? At even, right? And Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face towards the ground. And what I want us to see is that this is right here, right? Give them the gate, and it's evening.
Ich möchte eben zeigen, dass es hier ist. Also wir haben dieses Tor und dann den Abend.
Who comes there?
Wer kommt hier?
Two angels, right?
2 Engel.
So, and this is these 2 anointed ones, or 2 witnesses, right?
Und das sind diese 2 Gesalbten, 2 Zeugen.
And why are they coming to Sodom?
Und warum kommen sie zu Sodom?
That might be true, but that's not prophetically the reason why they're coming. Why are they coming? Who are they?
Also wer sind sie?
Okay, so why are they coming to Sodom? Right, they're coming to that says we will go and see if these things be true, right?
Also sie kommen sozusagen, zu sehen, ob diese Dinge wahr sind.
And when Lot sees them coming, he bows himself with his face to the ground, right?
Und wenn Lot sie sieht, dann neigt sein Angesicht zum Boden.
Okay, now all these things have to be understood line upon line and by context, right?
Diese Dinge müssen ja Linie auf Linie und mit dem Kontext verstanden werden.
Okay, because I've always sort of struggled to understand why he's bowing his face to the ground there, right?
Ich habe es immer nicht so richtig verstanden, warum eben sein Angesicht zur Erde wendet.
But if you go to Esther chapter 3,
Aber wenn wir jetzt zu Esther Kapitel 3 gehen,
Millers say when you want to understand something, bring all the subject matter together, right?
Millers Regel sagt ja, wenn man etwas richtig verstehen möchte, muss man diese ganzen Themen eben zusammenbringen.
Okay, Esther 3 verse 1.
Esther 3 und Vers 1.
It says, after these things did Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. So where does this bring us to prophetically?
Wohin bringt uns das prophetisch gesehen?
To the Sunday law, right?
Zum Sonntagsgesetz.
Okay. And all the king's servants that were in the king's what? The gate, right? Bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did in reverence. Then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him. What are they doing?
Was machen sie?
Okay, yes, that's what it says. But what is it representing?
Also wer stellt das dar?
Yes, it's a false daily, that's true, right? And the daily is marked in this time period, right?
Es ist ein falsches tägliches und es ist in dieser Zeit markiert.
Okay, it's so, but also the point is that it's marking a period of time where they're entreating him. From the time that the Sunday law begins, is a period of time where they're entreating him to bow down, right?
Und das ist eben diese Zeit vom Sonntagsgesetz, wo sie ihn
asking, trying to compel him.
Ermahnen.
Wo sie ihn sozusagen ermahnen, dass er eben dieses Gesetz erlässt.
Nee, dass er niederfallen soll.
Oder dass er niederfallen sollte.
So it says, Now it came to pass when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. So where does the wrath come?
Also von wo kommt dieser Zorn?
Not where does it come from. I'm saying where does the wrath come on the line, not where from.
Also wo ist dieser Zorn markiert auf der Linie?
Right? Okay, so here we have the wrath.
Also hier haben wir diesen Zorn.
Okay, and just let's go to the only quote that I've put in these notes.
Und jetzt gehen wir zum Zitat.
It says, The Protestant world today see in the little company keeping the Sabbath a Mordecai in the gate. So where is he?
Wo befindet er sich?
He's in the gate, right?
Er ist beim Tor.
His character and conduct expressed in reverence for the law of God are a constant rebuke to those who have cast off the fear of the Lord and are trampling upon his Sabbath. The unwelcome intruder must by some means be put out of the way. And this is marked here, right?
Und das ist eben hier markiert.
So, day after day he's in the gate and he refuses to bow down to Haman, right?
Also Tag Tag ist er beim Tor und er lehnt es eben ab, sich niederzubeugen.
So it comes to this point right here, to the midnight cry. And now they're going to decide that can't be tolerated and he needs to be put out of the way, right?
Also nun kommt es zu diesem Punkt beim Mitternachtsruf und sie sagen eben, ja, das kann nicht mehr toleriert werden und er muss hinweggeschafft werden.
So it's teaching us all through this time here, he was without blemish, right? He didn't, like Job, right? He stood for this first part of the test, right?
Also es lehrt uns, dass er für diese ganze Zeit hier ohne Makel war und so wie Hiob hat er diesen Test bestanden.
Right, everybody follow?
In jeder Folge.
Okay, now go to Esther chapter 4.
Wir gehen jetzt zu Esther Kapitel 4.
Okay, so when Mordecai perceived, it's speaking about the wrath or the intents of Haman, right?
Von Mordecai.
It's written there, when Mordecai perceived, right? So when Mordecai perceived, it's referring to what we've just read in Esther chapter 3, the wrath of Haman, right?
Also wenn Mordecai das sozusagen gesehen hat, das, was wir eben zuvor gelesen haben in Esther 2, das ist eben dieser Zorn Hamans.
Okay, so when Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and bitter cry. So there's this cry here, right?
Also da ist dieser Ruf.
Marking this midnight cry, right?
Das markiert den Mitternachtsruf.
And came even before the king's gate. So it's marking the gate, right?
Es ist markiert wieder das Tor.
For none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting and weeping and wailing, with many laying sackcloth and ashes. So, how I would understand it, when Lot bows down at the gate, it's marking the beginning of this experience, right?
So wie ich das verstehen würde, dass wenn Lot eben sich niederbeugt diesem Tor, dann geht es eben diesen Anfang, diese Erfahrung.
Because these two angels, the two anointed ones, are coming and the judgment's beginning, right?
Denn diese zwei Engel, sie kommen und die Gerichte, sie fangen an.
Right? This is the beginning of the Day of Atonement, right?
Das ist der Anfang des Tags der Versöhnung.
What was everybody to do on the Day of Atonement?
Und was sollte jeder beim Tag der Versöhnung machen?
Afflict their souls, right?
Also ihre Seelen demütigen.
They're bowing down because they know that judgment is right in front of them, right?
Und sie beugen sich nieder, denn sie wissen, das Gericht ist kurz vor ihnen.
Okay, and according to Exodus chapter 12, who's going to come?
Und gemäß 2. Mose Kapitel 12, wer würde kommen?
It's written up there, destroying angel, right?
Der zerstörerische Engel.
So they're weeping and mourning now for their sin, right?
Also sie klagen und weinen jetzt für ihre Sünden.
Okay. So go now to Revelation 11.
Wir gehen jetzt zu Offenbarung 11.
Because Exodus 12 is a reference to when they came out of Egypt, right?
Denn 2. Mose 12 ist ja sozusagen die Referenz, wenn sie eben aus Ägypten kommen.
Right? But Revelation 11, in fact, let's just read it and we'll see. Revelation 11, verse 1.
Wir lesen Offenbarung 11 und Vers 1.
And there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood saying, Rise and measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. What has the angel been commanded to do?
Was sollte der Engel machen?
To measure, right?
Sollte messen.
And when the angel's measuring you, it's marking a test. They're looking to see how you're reacting, right?
Und wenn der Engel dich misst, dann ist das sozusagen ein Test, denn sie schauen eben, wie reagierst du.
Right? And we've looked at this several times, and we know or we understand that Revelation 11, this 1260, begins here, right?
Und wir verstehen ja, dass das Offenbarung 11, diese 1260, dass sie hier beginnt.
Okay, this second phase of trouble, this birth pain, right, when it increases.
Das ist diese zweite Phase der Trübsal, wenn diese Geburtswehen zunehmen.
Verse 2.
Vers 2.
But the court which is without the temple, leave it out and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles in the holy city, shall they tread under foot 42 months. Right, 42 months is the time of tribulation marked in Matthew 24, right?
Diese 42 Monate, diese Zeit der Trübsal markiert in Matthäus 24.
Okay, and this is the time of tribulation marked in Matthew 24, right?
Und das ist diese Zeit der Trübsal markiert in Matthäus 24.
Okay, because it says there shall be great tribulation.
Und es sagt, dass große Trübsal sein wird.
Okay, verse 3.
Vers 3.
And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth, right? So for 1260, what are they going to be?
Also in diese 1260, was werden sie sein?
In sackcloth, right?
Sacktuch.
So, I'll put that here. In sackcloth. Everybody see the connections?
Kann jeder die Verbindungen sehen?
Right. Okay. These are the 2.
Just a question. That's the whole 1260, not just that little bit. I just put sackcloth.
I'm not going to write it right across there. I'm just writing it. It's where it begins. That's where Mordecai began to bow down and put on sackcloth, right?
Also das ist hier, wo es beginnt. Das ist, wo Mordecai eben Sacktuch angezogen hat und sich niedergebeugt hat.
Okay. So, verse 4.
Vers 4.
These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. So if anybody hurts them, how are they to be killed?
Also wenn irgendjemand sie verletzt, wie sollten sie getötet werden?
By fire, right?
Durch Feuer.
How was Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed?
Wie wurden Sodom und Gomorrah zerstört?
By fire, right?
Durch Feuer.
Okay, now you see that, right? In verse 6.
Vers 6.
These have power to shut heaven that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. Where is that referring to?
Worauf bezieht sich das?
Not who, to Egypt, right? So,
Also,
it's referring to a punishment that comes upon Sodom, and a punishment that comes upon Egypt. right?
Also es bezieht sich auf eine Bestrafung, die über Sodom kommt und auf eine Bestrafung, die über Ägypten kommt.
And just go to the next verses.
Wir gehen zu den nächsten Versen.
And when they shall have finished their testimony, Sister White says, are finishing, right?
Also Schwester White sagt ja, sie sind dabei, es zu beenden.
The beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. Right here, right? This is this are finishing. It's just this little portion here, right?
Also das ist hier, das ist, wenn sie dabei sind, es zu beenden. Da ist nur noch diese kleine Portion.
Right? So the beast rises up out of the bottomless pit, right?
Also das Tier, es steht auf aus diesem bodenlosen Abgrund.
And he makes war with them for how long?
Und wie lange macht es Krieg mit ihnen?
How long, Nelia? No, can't remember. Anybody? For 3.5 days, right? Which is 1260, right?
Für 3,5 Tage. Was die 1260 ist.
Okay, so here you have these 3 birth pangs, right?
Also hier haben wir diese 3 Geburtswehen.
Okay, and it says in verse 8,
Und es sagt in Vers 8,
and their dead bodies, because this is where they go to put them to death, right?
und das ist ja hier, wo sie getötet werden.
And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. Right? So you can see that these 2 punishments, the fire and the plagues, are referring to Sodom and Egypt. Right?
Also wir können sehen, dass diese 2 Bestrafungen, Feuer und durch diese Plagen, es bezieht sich auf Sodom und Ägypten.
Where also our Lord was crucified. Right? Okay? So you have the cross right here, where he's put to death. Right?
Also wir haben auch genau hier das Kreuz, wo eben getötet wird.
Okay, so now we know that the cross has many different applications, and we'll see that in a moment. Right?
Und wir wissen ja, dass das Kreuz eben viele verschiedene Anwendungen hat. Wir werden das auch gleich sehen.
Because we know that this is, in one sense, this is the 6th hour.
Wir wissen ja, dass das in einem Sinne die 6. Stunde ist.
This is. Excuse me. Yes, you're right. I was thinking myself, what have I done there? Thank you. I'll see that for the right day. So this is the 3rd hour. This is the 6th hour. And I'm not dealing with the first group here, just for everybody. This would be the 9th hour, where he says it's finished, right?
Also hier wäre diese 3. Stunde, hier die 6. Stunde und hier dann die 9. Stunde, wo sagt, es ist vollbracht.
Right. Everybody's completed at this point, right?
Und jeder ist dann eben vollkommen bei diesem Punkt.
Okay, so go back to Genesis 19.
Wir gehen zurück zu 1. Mose 19.
And he said, behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your, in fact, excuse me, I need to put this on here, right? So just let me put it down here. This would be the 6th, and this would be the 9th.
Also das wäre hier auch diese 6. und die 5. Stunde.
This is for the first group here, right?
Das ist für diese erste Gruppe hier.
Okay. Right, so Genesis 19, verse 2.
1. Mose 19, Vers 2.
And he said, behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your father's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet. And ye shall rise up early, and go on your ways. And they said, nay, but we will abide in the street all night. So what's taking place now?
Also was findet jetzt statt?
They've come here, they're at this gate, it's evening,
Also sie kommen hier hin zu diesem Tor, es ist Abend.
and what's Lot wanting them to do?
Und was möchte Lot von ihnen?
No, it's not just to tarry. Not just that. He wants them to come into their house, right?
Möchte, dass sie in sein Haus kommen.
So they're out in the street, and he's saying, no, please come into the house, right?
Also sie sind auf der Straße und er sagt, nein, bitte kommt in mein Haus.
Sorry? Yeah, just stick with this. That's true, but we'll come to that in a moment. But the point is, what's taking place then?
Also was findet dann statt?
No, just deal with this illustration. What is taking place between them and these two angels?
Also was findet statt zwischen ihm und diesen Engeln?
Yes, they're having a discussion, but they are trying to get them to do something, but the angels are saying, no, we don't want, right? So
Also,
did he just accept that?
Lot möchte, dass sie eben etwas tun, aber sie sagen, nein, schon okay, und akzeptiert Lot das?
No. So what's taking place?
Also was findet, also
Wrestling.
nein.
Yeah, there's a wrestling, right?
Und es findet sozusagen dieses Ringen statt.
They're wrestling with the two anointed ones to get them to come into the house, right?
Also er ringt mit diesen zwei Gesalbten, dass sie eben in sein Haus kommen.
And it says in verse 3, he pressed upon them greatly, right? He wasn't satisfied until they agreed to come into the house, right?
Und es sagt in Vers 3, dass er sie eben sehr dazu drängte. Also er war damit nicht zufrieden, dass sie nicht in sein Haus kamen.
And they turned in unto him and entered into his house, and he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat, right? So they come here, there's this wrestling going on, and here would be the point where they enter into the house, right?
Also die Engel kommen hier und dann findet eben dieses Ringen statt und hier gehen sie in sein Haus ein.
Okay, now they enter into the house. What's the house a symbol of?
Und wenn sie in das Haus eingehen, für was ist das Haus ein
Aha,
Symbol?
right.
Das
So,
Herz.
what would this represent when they enter into the house?
Und was stellt das dar, wenn sie in das Haus eingehen?
The what, sorry?
A blessing or a curse it can be.
No, come on. That's not answering the question, although you might be correct what you're saying, but what does it represent when they enter into the house at this point in time?
Was stellt es dar, wenn sie zu diesem Zeitpunkt in das Haus eingehen?
No, they did not have the revelation, right? It's marking the beginning. They've just had the struggle and they now enter into the house, right? So when they're entering in, what is the purpose of this eating? What does it represent?
Also sie hatten eben dieses Ringen und dann gehen sie in sein Haus ein.
We're too careless with these things. We need to look at these things very carefully, right?
Und wenn sie dann gemeinsam essen, was stellt das dar?
The reason I say that is because the law of God, when it's written in your heart, is when you've had the revelation. So the angels, which are the two witnesses, which are the two anointed ones, which is the law of God,
Yes, but
the flag roll that have entered into his heart.
No, that's not happened yet, right? When the latter rain comes, how does it come? Right, it's the former rain, right? So they're coming into the house, right? And coming into the house is this cleansing work that's taken place, right? It's not complete.
Also wenn sie in das Haus kommen, Spätregen kommt ja auch wieder, frühender Spätregen, also sie kommen sozusagen wie dieser Frühregen und machen eben dieses Reinigungswerk.
Okay, so this would mark the beginning of the revelation, right?
Und das würde den Anfang der Offenbarung markieren.
Okay, so now go to Luke 24. This is what Marius was mentioning.
Jetzt gehen wir zu Lukas 24, das ist, was Marius erwähnt hatte,
And verse 28.
in Vers 28.
And they drew nigh unto the village whither they went, and he made as though he would have gone further, right? So he made as though he would have passed them by, right?
Es hat eben so gewirkt, als würde er, also dass er eben weitergehen würde.
But they constrained him. What did they do?
Aber was haben sie gemacht?
Right, so in Genesis 19 it says he pressed upon them greatly, right? And here it says he constrained them. Same thing.
Also in 1. Mose 19 sagt es, dass er eben sehr sie gedrängt hat, und hier sagt es in Lukas 24, dass sie ihn eben sozusagen aufgehalten haben.
Okay, so, but they constrained them, saying, Abide with us, for it is towards evening, and the day is far spent. and he went in to tarry with them. So you have the exact same illustration, right? Christ is in the street, he's about to go somewhere else, and they have this wrestle with him until he comes into the house, right?
Also hier haben wir dieselbe Darstellung. Christus, also geht fast eben vorüber und sie fangen eben dann an, mit ihm zu ringen, dass eben in das Haus kommt.
So just like the angels, they come in to tarry with him, right?
Und so wie die Engel, dann kommt eben zu ihnen, mit ihnen zu warten.
So if they're tarrying, the time's not yet finished, right?
Also wenn sie warten, dann ist die Zeit noch nicht zu Ende.
Right? Okay. So, verse 30.
Vers 30.
And it came to pass, as he sat at meat with them, just like the angels, right?
Also so wie die Engel.
He took bread and blessed it and brake it and gave it to them, and their eyes were opened, right? And they knew him, and he vanished out of their sight. So now, after they've had this breaking bread, this eating this meat, their eyes are opened, right?
Also nachdem sie dieses Brotbrechen hatten und eben, dass sie dieses Mahl gegessen haben, da wurden ihre Augen dann geöffnet.
Okay? Everybody see the parallel?
Kann jeder die Parallele sehen?
So it would mark this time period. They're breaking this bread here, and from the time he comes into the house, and at the end, their eyes are opened, right?
Und das markiert eben diese Zeit hier, wo sie dieses Brot brechen, kommen die Engel oder Jesus in das Haus und dann werden ihnen die Augen geöffnet.
So go back to go back to Genesis 19,
Also wir gehen zurück zu 1. Mose 19,
verse 4.
in Vers 4.
It says, "But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came in unto thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them." So what do they want to do to the two witnesses?
Also was wollten sie mit den zwei Zeugen machen?
Sorry?
Sodomie.
Yes, they want to commit sodomy to them, right?
Also sie wollten eben Sodomie an ihnen begehen.
And what I want us to see, it's the same point in the two witnesses where they go to put them to death, right?
Und das ist derselbe Punkt, wo sie eben auch diese zwei Zeugen töten.
The two witnesses is the Bible, right?
Und diese zwei Zeugen, das ist ja die Bibel.
So ultimately what they want to do is they want to destroy the message, right?
Also was sie machen wollen, ist, dass sie eben die Botschaft zerstören wollen.
Because right here, the latter rain is like falling, right? And they want to prevent them from receiving, right? Or prevent, it's an illustration of a counter work to the latter rain, right?
Und hier fällt ja der Spätregen und das ist eine Darstellung von diesem Gegenwerk zum Spätregen.
Okay, it says, "And Lot went out of the door to them and shut the door after him." So there's two times here that Lot shuts the door, right?
Also es sind diese zwei Malen, wo eben er diese Türe schließt.
Okay, so I want us to see that the first one is here at the beginning, the door.
Und das erste Mal ist hier, also diese Tür.
Because when we go to Psalm 22, verse 16,
Denn in Psalm 22, Vers 16,
it says, "For dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me, they have pierced my hands and my feet." So where's it marking?
also was markiert ist.
The cross, right? And when you go to Revelation 11, the Mass where the two witnesses get crucified right here, right?
Also das Kreuz und das ist ja in Offenbarung 11 hier markiert, wo diese zwei Zeugen dann
It's where
getötet
the
werden.
dogs compass the house, right?
Also es ist, wo diese Hunde das Haus umzingeln.
And if you go to Jonah chapter 2,
Und wenn wir zu Jona Kapitel 2 gehen,
this is the belly experience, which we also know as this here, right?
also das ist diese Baucheserfahrung, das wissen wir ist auch hier,
Verse 1.
Vers 1.
It says, "Then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God out of the fish's belly. And said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me out of the belly of hell, cried I, and thou heardest my voice. For thou hast cast me into the deep, in the midst of the seas, and the floods compassed me about. All thy billows and thy waves passed over me. So what's happening to Job?
Also was geschieht?
The floods compass him, right?
Jonah, also diese Fluten, sie umzingeln ihn.
Then I said, I am cast out of thy sight, yet I will look again towards thy holy temple. The waters compassed me about, even to the soul. The depth closed me round about, the weeds were wrapped about my head. So this experience is where they compass you round, right?
Also ist diese Erfahrung hier, wo sie dich umzingeln.
Because remember, in the seventh plague, the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet, what do they do?
Denn in der 7. Plage, was machen der Drache, der
Or
Prophet?
at the end of the 6th plague, beginning of the 7th plague, what do they do?
Also was machen sie am Ende der 6. Plage und am Anfang der 7. Plage?
No, they don't put you to death, but they come and surround you and want to put you to death, right?
Also sie kommen und umzingeln dich und wollen dich töten.
Okay, so everybody see that point, right?
Also konnte jeder das sehen.
So when they compass the house, it's marking the beginning of the belly experience, right?
Also wenn sie das Haus umzingeln, dann markiert es eben den Anfang dieser Bauchserfahrung.
Okay. So go back to Genesis 19,
Wir gehen zurück zu 1. Mose 19,
verse 7.
in Vers 7.
And said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold now, so basically, what are they manifesting here?
Also was manifestieren sie hier?
That they're the wicked, right?
Dass sie diese Gottlosen sind.
Because it's right here where all character is manifested, right?
Denn es ist ja hier, wo aller Charakter offenbart wird.
It says, and I said, and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold now, I have 2 daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came into sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now we will deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house to them and shut to the door. One second, did I miss that point? Oh no, it's coming. Okay, so there's a second time the door is shut, right?
Also da ist das zweite Mal, wo diese Türe geschlossen wird.
Because we understand that you're saved right at the last moment, right?
Und wir verstehen ja, man wird gerettet bis kurz vor dem letzten Moment.
Am letzten Moment.
Beim letzten Moment.
Okay, so let me give a second witness to this illustration, right? Go to 2 Kings chapter 2.
Wir gehen zu 2. Könige 2
Verse 8.
und Vers 8.
It says, and Elijah took his mantle and wrapped it together and smote the waters, and they were divided hither and thither, so that they 2 went over on dry ground. Now we know that that's at the beginning here, right?
Wir wissen, das ist ja am Anfang hier.
So at the beginning there, the waters are smitten and the waves are parted and they cross over. Right?
Also am Anfang werden die Wasser geschlagen und sie teilen sich und sie können drüber gehen.
And it came to pass, when they were gone over, that Elijah said unto Elisha, ask what I shall do for thee, before I be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. And he said, thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me, when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee, but if not, it shall not be so. So what's he saying to him?
Also was sagt ihnen?
What's the conditions for him receiving that double measure?
Also was sind diese Bedingungen für ihn, dass dieses doppelte Maß erhält?
If he sees the revelation at the end, right?
Also wenn ihn sieht, diese Offenbarung am Ende.
Okay. So if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee, but if not, it shall not be so. And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared, there what? Appeared, there's the appearance, right?
Also hier erschien, es ist diese Erscheinung.
there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire and parted them both asunder. And okay, this is the revelation, right?
Und das ist dann die Offenbarung.
And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. And Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, my father. So where is he now?
Also wo ist er jetzt?
The ninth hour, right at the end, right?
Bei der 9. Stunde am Ende.
Okay. The chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof, and he saw him no more, and he took hold of his own clothes and rent them in two pieces. He took up also the mantle of Elijah that fell from him, and went back and stood by the bank of Jordan. He took the mantle of Elijah that fell from him, and smote the waters, and said, where is the Lord God of Elijah? And when he also had smitten the waters, they parted hither and thither, and Elisha went over. So it's like these two smitings of the waters are a parallel to these two doors, right?
Also diese zwei schlagende Wasser sind eine Parallele zu diesen zwei Türen.
Okay, and just go back to Genesis 19,
Wir gehen zurück zu 1. Mose 19,
verse 11.
Vers 11.
When he shuts this door the second time,
Also wenn er jetzt diese Türe zum zweiten Mal verschließt,
and they smote the men that were at the door. What do?
also was geschah?
They smite the men, right?
Also sie schlugen die Männer.
They smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. Right? They can't find the door anymore, right?
Also sie konnten die Tür nicht mehr finden.
It's like the foolish virgins. They can't find the oil anymore, right?
So wie die törichten Jungfrauen, sie können das Öl nicht mehr finden.
Okay, so the angels here make them blind, right?
Die Engel hier machen sie blind.
Amen?
Amen.
Okay, now go to John 9,
Jetzt gehen wir
39.
zu Johannes 9, Vers 39.
And Jesus said, for judgment I am come into this world, that they which see not might see, and that they which see might be what? Made blind. Right? So you can see, it's at the 9th hour when you've rejected the truth, when you've destroyed the message right here, that you're made blind. Right?
Also wir können sehen, es ist bei der 9. Stunde, also wenn du diese Botschaft verworfen hast und
When you destroy the message, right,
Also wenn
like
du-
the Sodomites do.
also wenn du sozusagen diese Botschaft zerstörst, dann wirst du eben hier blind gemacht.
Because the two anointed ones,
Denn die zwei Gesalbten,
if you reject them, what are you rejecting?
wenn du sie verwirfst, wen verwirfst du dann?
Yes, you reject Christ. You're rejecting the Holy Spirit, right?
Also Christus oder den Heiligen Geist.
Because that's what they are. They are the anointed ones. They want to, as Lawrence was saying last night, they want to come in and pour this oil into your heart, right?
Sie sind ja diese zwei Gesalbten und sie wollen eben kommen und dieses Öl in dein Herz gießen.
Christ says, unless ye eat my flesh and drink my blood, which is the bread that they were sharing, right?
Und Christus sagt ja, wenn ihr nicht mein Fleisch esst und mein Blut trinkt, was ja das Brot ist, was die geteilt haben,
You have no life in you, right?
dann habt ihr kein Leben in euch.
So they are represented by those people in John chapter 6 who rejected this plea from Christ to eat his flesh and blood, right?
Also es sind wie diese Menschen in Johannes 6, die was eben diese Bitte Jesu verworfen haben, dass sie dieses Fleisch essen sollten.
So what did they do?
Also was machen sie dann?
They walked no more. John 6:6, right?
Sie sind nicht mehr mit ihm gegangen. Das ist Johannes 6.
It's
Vers
right here.
66.
They were made blind, right?
Also genau hier wurden sie blind gemacht.
Everybody see that?
Kann das jeder sehen?
Okay. And some of the Pharisees which were with him heard these words and said unto him, Are we blind also? Jesus said unto them, If ye were blind, ye should have no sin. But now ye say, We see. Therefore your sin remaineth. So instead of their sin being blotted out here, it remains. Right?
Also anstatt dass ihre Sünden hier ausgetilgt werden, so bleibt sie eben.
So one group, their sin is taken away. That means their eyes would be opened. Right?
Also für eine Gruppe werden ihre Sünden hinweggenommen, ihre Augen werden geöffnet.
And that's what Luke 24 marked, right?
Das ist ja, was Lukas 24 markiert hat.
They ate the bread and their eyes were opened,
Sie haben
right?
das Brot gegessen und ihre Augen wurden geöffnet.
So their sins were blotted out,
Also
right?
ihre Sünden wurden ausgetilgt.
Whereas this group, they reject the flesh and blood of Christ, right? That comes through the anointed ones.
Wobei diese Gruppe, sie verwerfen eben dieses Fleisch und Blut, was durch die zwei Gesalbten kommt.
And therefore they are made blind,
Und
right?
deswegen werden sie blind gemacht.
Okay, so go to Romans chapter 1,
Wir gehen jetzt zu Römer 1,
verse 18.
Vers 18.
So, and I want us to understand that all of us are sinners, right?
Und ich möchte ja, dass wir sehen, dass wir alle Sünder sind.
And everything depends upon this time, right?
Und das alles eben abhängt von dieser Zeit hier.
But you can see this time depends upon this time, right?
Aber wir können sehen, dass diese Zeit, sie ist abhängig von dieser Zeit.
Right? You must understand that this is going to be what's before us. We must be praying without ceasing day and night for the Lord to come in, right?
Also wir müssen Tag und Nacht beten, dafür, dass der Herr hineinkommt.
He says, I stand at the door and knock.
Und er sagt ja, ich stehe bei der Tür und klopfe.
Okay, we must invite him in, right?
Und wir müssen ihn einladen.
But he won't come into a house where sin is, right?
Aber er wird nicht in ein Haus kommen, wo Sünde ist.
So hence in this time period, in the Day of Atonement, what are you doing?
Deswegen in dieser Zeit, am Tag der Versöhnung, was musst du da tun?
You're searching your heart, confessing your sin, right?
Du musst dein Herz durchsuchen und deine Sünden bekennen.
And it's a parallel to you inviting Christ to come in, right?
Und das ist eine Parallele dazu, dass du Christus einlädst, hineinzukommen.
So as you're confessing your sin, Christ is waiting till it's completed and then he will come in, right?
Also du tust deine Sünden bekennen und Christus wartet, bis das vollendet ist und dann kommt er
And
hinein.
when he comes in, he will finish the cleansing work, right?
Und wenn er dann hineinkommt, dann vollendet er dieses Reinigungswerk.
Okay, right. So, Romans 1 verse 18.
Römer 1 und Vers 18.
It says, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven. So, here we have the wrath marked, right?
Also hier haben wir diesen Zorn markiert.
It says, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. So this is representing people that proclaim to know the truth, but they're holding on to it in unrighteousness, right?
Also das sind Menschen, die behaupten, die Wahrheit zu verstehen, zu halten, aber sie halten, wie bitte? Aufrecht zu halten, aber sie machen das eben durch Ungerechtigkeit.
It says, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. Now what's that talking about right there?
Über was spricht das hier?
Yes, the revelation, right?
Von der Offenbarung.
The latter rain falls on whom?
Denn der Spätregen fällt auf wen?
The just and the unjust alike, right?
Auf die Gerechten, also auch auf die Ungerechten.
It says, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. So he's saying all the types reveal this, right? So that they have got no excuse, right?
All diese Typen sind offenbar, also sie haben keine Entschuldigung.
Because that when they knew God, so this is also representing a people that had the first birth, right?
Also das stellt auch Menschen dar, die was die erste Geburt bereits hatten.
They glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. So here we have the foolish virgins which did not continue to gather the oil, right?
Also hier haben wir diese törichten Jungfrauen, die nicht fortfahren, haben eben dieses Öl zu sammeln.
And changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds, and four-footed beasts, and creeping things. So where do we see this? Where do we get this from?
Von wo bekommen wir das?
Von Peter.
From Ezekiel 8. It is true what you're saying, but the answer is Ezekiel 8, right?
Also es ist richtig, was du sagst mit Petrus, aber Antwort ist Ezekiel 8.
But there's, like in Peter, there's 4 things mentioned here, right?
Also so wie bei Petrus sind 4 Dinge erwähnt.
So it has some relation to this thing with Peter, which we will come to later, right?
Also es hat eine Beziehung zu dem von Petrus, dazu kommen wir dann noch.
But these people here represent those in Ezekiel 8 that have all these things in their heart, right?
Und das stellt eben diese Menschen in Ezekiel 8 dar, die was diese Dinge in ihrem Herzen haben.
So remember, this is these idols that were here opposing Jerusalem here, right?
Und denkt dran, das waren ja diese Götzen hier, die was eben Jerusalem hier entgegengesetzt waren.
And the Lord comes here first, right?
Und der Herr kommt hier zuerst.
So this would represent the Jews and this would represent the Gentiles, right?
Also das würde diese Juden darstellen und das die Heiden.
Okay. So, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like unto corruptible man, to birds, to four-footed beasts and creeping things. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lusts of their own hearts, to dishonour their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of God into a lie. So what are they doing?
Also was machen sie?
They're taking the message, or thy word is truth, right? The 2 witnesses,
Also sie nehmen die Botschaft, also dein Wort ist Wahrheit, die 2 Zeugen,
and they're turning it into a lie, right?
und sie verdrehen es in diese Lüge.
So when these guys come up here and they want to sodomize the 2 witnesses, it's the same illustration, right?
Wenn diese Menschen herkommen wollen und Sodomie mit den 2 Zeugnissen treiben wollen, dann ist es dasselbe.
Because it says, who changed the truth of God into a lie and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause God gave them up to vile affections. What's he doing?
Also was macht er?
Unto their idols.
Yes, they're left unto their idols, right? And he's giving them now something, right?
Sie werden ihren Götzen
Or
überlassen.
should we say Satan is giving them something and the Lord is allowing him to do that, right?
Und Satan gibt ihnen jetzt etwas und Gott erlaubt, dass das geschieht.
So he gives them over to their master, right?
Also er gibt sie sozusagen weiter an ihren Meister.
For this cause God gave them up to vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their hearts one toward another, men with men. What is this?
Also
It's
was ist
sodomy,
das?
right?
Das ist Sodomie.
So it explains itself that the sodomy is turning the truth into a lie, and they're going to receive Satan's power, right?
Also es erklärt sich jetzt selbst, dass diese Sodomie sie verdreht Gottes Wort in eine Lüge.
It's going to completely corrupt their minds, right?
Und es wird ihren Verstand sozusagen
Verse 28.
verdrehen.
And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. So the natural illustrates the spiritual, right?
Also das Natürliche stellt ja auch das Geistliche dar.
And it says, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. Right? So you're revealing that you are fully a child of Satan at this point, right?
Also du offenbarst dann zu diesem Punkt, dass du völlig ein Kind Satans bist.
So go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, because it's a parallel.
Geh jetzt zu 2. Thessalonicher Kapitel 2, denn es ist eine Parallele.
Verse 10.
Vers 10.
And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth. What did they do?
Also was haben sie gemacht?
They turned the truth into a lie, right?
Sie haben die Wahrheit in der Lüge verdreht.
They receive not the love of the truth that they might be saved, and for this cause God shall send them strong delusion. This is him giving them over to a reprobate mind, right?
Das ist das, was sie eben übergibt zu ihren
Yes.
verkehrten
Right?
ja, Verständern.
Yes, and Scott says that this is where he makes them blind, right?
Und das ist, wo sie blind macht.
And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they might all be damned who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So not only do they do it, but they have pleasure in it, right?
Also sie machen es nicht nur, sondern sie haben auch Gefallen daran.
So they will take great pleasure here in tearing apart the truth that they once upheld, right?
Also sie haben ihr Wohlgefallen daran, dass sie eben diese Wahrheit auseinandernehmen, der sie eben einst selbst gehorchten.
So we know that you're going to be delivered up, right? And you're going to have to stand before the kings there and defend the truth that they're tearing apart, right?
Und wir wissen ja, wir werden ausgeliefert und du musst dann eben vor den Königen stehen und musst eben für diese Wahrheit einstehen, die sie ja auseinandernehmen wollen.
Okay, so now go to Acts chapter 10.
Jetzt gehen wir zur Apostelgeschichte, Kapitel
And
10.
now we'll come to this parallel that Margaret was referring to, right?
Jetzt kommen wir zu dieser Parallele, worauf sich Margaret
Verse 11.
bezogen hat.
It says, and saw heaven open. So where does heaven get opened?
Also
On the line.
wo wird der Himmel auf der Linie geöffnet?
The 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, the sixth hour, right?
Zur 6. Stunde.
When they come into the house, when you invite them into the house, this is when heaven is being opened, right?
Also wenn du sie einlädst in das Haus, dann wird der Himmel geöffnet.
You've invited angels into your house, right?
Denn du hast ja Engel in dein Haus eingeladen.
And saw heaven opened, and a certain vessel descending unto him, as it had been a great sheet knit at the four corners and let down to the earth. How many corners is on it?
Also wie viele Ecken hat es?
4, right?
4.
It says, wherein were all manner of four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. This is what these men had in their hearts, right?
Und das ist ja auch das, was diese Männer in ihren Herzen hatten.
And there came a voice to him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. And the voice spake unto him again the second time, What God hath cleansed, that call not thou common, right? So it's marking two groups of people, right? This group from these Sodomites who have this in their heart, who reject the two witnesses and therefore cannot be cleansed, right?
Also das markiert diese zwei Gruppen. Einerseits diese einen, die was eben diese Sodomie haben und die was die Wahrheit eben verwerfen.
Okay, so
Die zwei Zeugen verwerfen und deswegen nicht gereinigt werden.
Also sie verwerfen die zwei Zeugen und können deswegen nicht gereinigt werden.
okay, so the two witnesses, they're also represented by the four cherubims, right?
Und diese zwei Zeugen, sie sind ja auch dargestellt durch die zwei Cherubine.
So in this illustration that Peter's saying, he sees the four cherubims. They're at the corner of this sheet, right?
Also das, was Petrus hier sieht, ist eine Darstellung von diesen 4 Cherubimen, die was an den Enden dieses Leintuchs sind.
Okay, I went through this the other day. Line upon line, whenever the heavens opened, it's the same vision, right?
Und Linie auf Linie, wenn der Himmel geöffnet wird, ist es immer dieselbe Vision.
What he's seeing is the cross, because the cross is what cleanses you of all your sin, right?
Und was sie sehen, das ist das Kreuz, denn das Kreuz reinigt dich von all deinen Sünden.
And when this cross, when the foot touches the Mount of Olives, right, what does it do?
Und wenn dieser Fuß diesen Berg berührt, was macht es dann?
It cleanses it, right?
Es reinigt ihn.
Okay, so and when Sodom here, am I right to call it Sodom?
Ist es richtig, wenn ich das Sodom nenne?
We will see in a minute. This is Sodom, right?
Wir werden das gleich sehen, das ist Sodom.
Rejects the truth. It moves over, right?
Wenn Sodom diese Wahrheit verwirft, dann geht sie weiter.
Goes to the next people that are open to be cleansed, right?
Sie geht zu den nächsten Menschen, die was eben offen sind, gereinigt zu werden.
Okay, so if you just go now to Mark chapter 2, and Lucia She told me this yesterday and I also thought it was very nice. Go to Mark chapter 2 verse 1.
Wir gehen zu Markus 2 in Vers 1.
You'll also see it very clearly, right? It says, again he entered into Capernaum after some days, and it was noised that he was in where? In the house. So they've invited him into the house, right?
Also sie haben ihn eingeladen in das Haus.
And straightway many were gathered together, insomuch there was no room to receive them, no, not so much as about the door. And he preached the word unto them. And they come unto him, bringing one sick of the palsy, which was borne of 4. How many people are carrying this man?
Also wie viele Menschen tragen diesen Mann?
4,
4.
right? And he's on a bed, so there's one at each corner, right?
Ist auf diesem Bett und da ist jeder in einer Ecke.
And when they could not come nigh unto him for the press, they uncovered the roof where he was. So what's happening now?
Also was geschieht jetzt?
The heavens are being opened, right?
Die Himmel werden geöffnet.
And when they had broken it up, they let down the bed wherein the sick of the palsy lay. So what is it?
Also was ist das?
It's this sheet at 4 corners being lowered down, right?
Es ist dieses Tuch, was an diesen 4 Enden eben heruntergebracht wird.
And when Jesus saw their faith, he saith unto the sick of the palsy, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee. So his eyes have been opened, right?
Also seine Augen wurden geöffnet.
Amen?
Amen.
This Bible's so nice, right? Okay. So, now let's go to Isaiah chapter 3 and verse 8.
Wir gehen jetzt zu Jesaja 3 und Vers 8.
It says, For Jerusalem is ruined, and Judah is fallen, because their tongue and their doings are against the Lord, to provoke the eyes of his glory. To show of their countenance doth witness against them, and they declare their sin as Sodom. They hide it not. Woe unto their soul, for they have rewarded evil unto themselves. Right? So, right here, Mount Moriah becomes Sodom. Right?
Also genau hier wird Berg Moriah zu Sodom.
Okay. So, it marks the people now. Your house is left unto you desolate. Right?
Das markiert jetzt diese Menschen, wo ihr Haus ihnen nun wüst hinterlassen wird.
So, go to Genesis 19, verse 12.
Wir kommen jetzt zurück zu 1. Mose 19 und Vers 12.
And the men said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides son-in-law, and thy sons and thy daughters? And whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. So, what are they now saying to Lot?
Also was sagen sie jetzt zu Lot?
They're sending him, right?
Sie senden ihn,
Because he's had his eyes opened, right?
denn seine Augen wurden ja geöffnet.
Lot represents this sheet that's been laid down, and they have washed him clean, right?
Und Lot stellt ja sozusagen dieses Tuch da,
That's been lowered down.
das was eben heruntergebracht wird.
Okay, and so Lot now goes forward to his sons-in-law, to another group of people, right?
Und Lot geht jetzt sozusagen zu seinen Schwiegersöhnen, also eine andere Gruppe von Menschen.
It says, For we will destroy this place. What's it speaking about?
Also über was spricht es in Vers 13?
The destroying angel,
Über den zerstörerischen Engel.
right?
Richtig?
So you can see how this parallel that's speaking about them coming out of Egypt is a parallel to this illustration about Sodom, right?
Also wir können sehen, wie das hier, wenn sie aus Ägypten herauskommen, eine Parallele ist zu dem eben von Sodom.
Okay, because the destroying angel, I mean, he begins his work here, but he's about to destroy here, and Lot now goes forward and gives them this last warning before the destroying angel comes down, which was typified at 9/11, right?
Und der zerstörerische Engel kommt ja hier zu zerstören und Lot geht hier vorwärts und gibt ihnen diese letzte Warnung, bevor eben Zerstörung hier ist, was eben dargestellt ist durch den 11. September.
Right? So we can see Revelation 11 is combining the coming out of Egypt with the coming out of Babylon, right? Egypt and Sodom. Sorry, coming out of Egypt with coming out of Sodom. Excuse me.
Also wir können sehen, wie Offenbarung 11 eben das für uns verbindet, dieses Herauskommen aus Ägypten, das Herauskommen aus Sodom.
Amen? And we know that Sodom is also likened unto Babylon.
Und wir wissen, dass auch Sodom verglichen wird mit Babylon.
Now the reason I did this illustration, Genesis 19, is because it's a parallel to Judges 19.
Und der Grund, warum ich das gemacht habe, also 1. Mose 19, ist, weil es auch ein Parallele ist zu Richter 19.
So tomorrow we'll try to take Judges 19 now and lay that on the top of this illustration so that we can better understand it, right?
Also morgen werden wir zu Richter 19 gehen und das eben auf diese Darstellung legen und dann können wir das besser verstehen.
Amen?
Amen.
Okay, let's close with prayer.
Wir schließen ab mit Gebet.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for having this study.
Unser himmlischer Vater, ich möchte dir danken, dass wir dieses Studium haben konnten.
And thank you that you are opening us all the scriptures through verse by verse.
Und ich möchte dir danken, dass du uns durch Vers um Vers die Schriften öffnest.
And I pray that you will help us to bring together more and more.
Und ich möchte bitten, dass du uns hilfst,
Mehr zusammenzubringen.
dass wir mehr und mehr zusammenkommen.
Lord, I thank you that you will help us to bring together this puzzle, that it may be a beautiful picture for us.
Und bitte hilf uns, dass wir dieses Puzzle zusammenbringen, sodass es ein schönes Bild für uns ergeben kann.
And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Und ich bete dies in Jesu Namen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.